If you can believe it, this building took me 4 hours to build, and that's 4 hours in creative. I spent a lot of time on this for what it was. I mean, really, it's probably way too much effort, but can you tell what POI it once was? If you couldn't guess, this was actually Garage First Construction, which I will put some screenshots of on screen right now so you can tell which one I'm talking about if you don't recognize it by name. But that's right, I fully built up the Garage First Construction POI. There was a lot of problems. The first of which was this patch of dirt here. This patch of dirt in the original Garage First Construction POI is like sand and gravel, and no grass terrain you put on it will change that. It's like baked into the POI that will be sand and gravel. So I replaced it with dirt, which works for some reason, and then made it into like a little area with a kennel and a table and a grill. Because why not? I also put in a flower bed over here because it made sense. The garage part of this building is actually pretty empty because I thought, like, how decorated is a garage anyway? It's just got a car inside. But yeah, I decorated it with some hedges out the front and added some wheelie bins. On the inside, the living room's pretty simple. I quite like the fireplace though. I did make the ceilings in this POI too short. I noticed that way too late. I would have ideally liked another block before this so I could have the crown layer above things like the clock here, but given that limitation I have of height, this is the best I could do. I had to make a choice, and this was the choice I made. There's a little area back here with a washing machine and stuff. The bathroom is also very bare bones. There's a shower hiding back here. And then there's the toilet and the sink. The footprint of the building that it looks like they were planning to build in Garage First Construction is very small. So I gave myself the restriction of trying to fit, you know, a whole house into all of that. So we have the living room here, a little back area here that leads to a back door, and a dryer and a washing machine. And then the very cramped bathroom is in here. A decent sized kitchen. I've seen smaller kitchens. You've got a lot of you know, cooking space and stuff here with a little dining area. For the size of the building, it was a pretty decent sized kitchen. I didn't put in a basement, by the way, because that would have been quite difficult to do. Well, that would have been quite difficult to do. I was going to add more to that, but it would have been difficult, is the short of it. And then we have like a sort of a hall area. I decided to use this space on a computer and some storage. This area is so big despite how small the house is, just because of the shape of the outside of the house kind of dictating what we had the ability to do window wise and stuff. So here we have just a simple bedroom, pretty, you know, normally decorated. I wouldn't pay too much attention to this one. And indeed a children's bedroom. There's actually a surprising lack of things you can put in a kid's bedroom in this game, so I just put books and a laptop. It's not like there's toys that you can give them or anything, so I just went with like, yes, children do homework, they have clothes, they put toys in containers, and they read, apparently. Yes, that's what children do. All of this for 4 hours of building is absolutely insane. Why does it take so long to build in 7 days to die? You can see I've done very little around the back here, but there's a little bit of decoration, air conditioning, the breaker thingy, plus a generator that's actually powering the lights. There aren't actually a lot of lights the player can use to actually illuminate things without using the POI editor, so they're all just light bulbs powered by an actual generator, but just pretend they were powered by, you know, civilization at one point. A little chimney area here. And yeah, the Garage First Construction, which I painted yellow, because why not? It's kind of crazy how long it took to do when I had infinite resources. And it wasn't like I was stalling and like not sure what to build. It just genuinely took ages to place everything. It's really strange. The fence in particular is pretty intricate. I copied it from the Cobweb Cottage, as you can see, because it made sense. They were right next to each other, so I went with it. But this is quite a lot of pieces, and it was quite annoying to paint it all, and you can see I've missed a couple of places, but honestly, who cares? So yeah, let's run through like everything I did over the past few hours so that if you want to make your own POIs in 7 days style like this, you know what tools to use, and just a rough idea of how I went about it. Of course, you might have different ideas. First of all, we're using this SMG here. It's called the Super Digger. It is available in the creative menu if you enable the little dev button at the top. Once you've done that, if you type in dev into the creative screen, you'll see a selection of various dev testing items. items you can use. This one is the SMG. This one insta destroys blocks. Anything you shoot with it will instantly be destroyed, doesn't matter how much health it is. And what we're doing here first is clearing out all of the exterior clutter from the POI so that I can take a look at the POI and be like, okay, this is what I want to do. Alright, so in this next section, you can see I'm building up the exterior higher fence, and I just copied it from the next door house because one, it was convenient, and two, it just made sense visually that it would match the next door. It was actually one of the longer parts of the process, just placing down all of these individual blocks and like getting the framing blocks in the correct position. It took like an hour, which is really surprising. It probably doesn't look like that since I've sped it up to about 3 minutes here, and I'll probably cut off the end of it when I'm done talking, but it was surprisingly time consuming. And part of the reason why 7 Days to Die is so time consuming to build them, by the way, is because there are so many blocks, which means that there's no sort of imagination. Like if you build in Minecraft, you have 4 or 5 actual shapes to work with and loads of textures. So it's fairly simple to just build something and let the imagination fill in the blanks. With 7 Days to Die, you don't have an excuse to fill in the blanks. All of the blocks are there, so you have to use them or it looks really weird. Yeah, in this section, you can kind of see me starting to reckon with the fact that there's actually no way to fully replace all the gravel and sand here. No matter what you do, you can place as much grass or you can place as much topsoil or specifically forest ground or even concrete here, and it will always appear as the sand and the gravel for some reason. Eventually, I figured out that the one way to stop this was to place actual dirt blocks, which doesn't actually look that much better, but it made more sense than there being random patches of sand, I suppose. So eventually I put in a bunch of dirt there and I just worked with it. I just tried to do what I could with it. And I think the end product ended up looking not too out of place. You can kind of see that the dirt goes over the fence and stuff, but it's not that bad, all things considered. Next, I put in the picket fence, and I also at this point froze time in my world so it would stop changing the lighting constantly. The picket fence was fairly self-explanatory, it did not take a lot of effort to do. And then I played with various different trees to put in that dirt patch to try and find one that would look right and that wouldn't be too overbearing for like the road, because I feel like it would be like some kind of safety violation if it was too big. Eventually I think I chose the second largest tree and then expanded out the little dirt patch, and then I tried to decorate it, eventually coming to the picnic table, the grill, and the doghouse. I then spent genuinely like 20 minutes, I think, hitting all the grass in the front of this POI so that it wouldn't be so overgrown looking. And then finally, like 2 hours into the process, I started actually building the shaping for the house. I wanted it to be a house that could fit like 2 bedrooms, which would have been quite difficult to do on 1 floor, so I decided to make it a 2-story building. And you can see the roof was actually really complicated to put in, but for the most part, if you just use a nearby building and copy all the shapes it uses, you'll typically find yourself in a position where it's not too hard to make a normal looking roof. I then also cleaned up the garage itself a little bit, changing the doors out for ones that could open, and put some frames on all the windows and all the POIs. I also put on a bunch of exterior and interior lights because after I put the windows in, it actually reduced the light quite a bit. I then placed a car outside the garage and a car inside the garage. Since it is 2 distinct doors, I figured this would be a household that has 2 cars, and I got to painting the basics of what I had created. So I went with metal siding for the picket fence actually, and I copied the paint for the other fence from the cobweb cottage. I chose the blue siding for the main house because it wasn't the same as any of the houses around me, so it just looked a little bit more original. I did steal the roof colors from all the houses nearby, they pretty much all use the same one. Then I went to decorating the front garden a little bit, and I went with, you know, the bins and the flower bed, and I also grabbed the sidewalk texture and the plate block to build sort of an actual path to the various gateways. There's no picket gates as far as I've ever seen, so I just kind of had to deal with the fact that there's no gates there and, you know, live with it. And at this point, it was cleaning up a few things and doing the chimney for the back of the house, and then came the interior decoration, which was fairly easy. There's actually not a lot of textures to work with in 7 Days to Die that look even vaguely good, so a lot of interiors end up looking very samey, which does save a lot of time. The biggest time consuming thing I think with the interiors was putting in the crowns on all the corners, and then I built the interior fireplace of the house and put some grates on it to make it look like a more of an electrical fireplace, I guess, but it doesn't make sense. It's still just as a normal fireplace. I put in a TV and a few couches into the living room and peppered a load of the very few decorative residential blocks you get in 7 Days to Die throughout this building. The kitchen is actually a very easy building or room I should say, to decorate. They have a lot of kitchen decor, so that was quite easy to do. And I used the space under the stairs to hide a washing machine, since apparently Americans don't put theirs in the kitchen, so that's the best place I could think of. And then I decorated the interior for the hallway with some plants and pictures and that PC as I mentioned. And then the kids' bedroom, I kind of phoned it in. There's just not a lot of good options to make it a distinctly a child's bedroom, but I went with it. And then the main bedroom, I just built the classic like 7 Days to Die closet. You can imagine if this was meant to be like an actual in-game POI, the zombies would be bursting out of those closets very predictably. And the last room I actually decorated was the bathroom, which was very bare bones just because of what little we had access to space-wise. So yeah, I don't know, what goal I had with this. I just decided I wanted to build something today, and this is what I did. I was like, garage first construction, let's actually finish the build. Let me know what you guys think about the house, what you would have done to upgrade garage first construction. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this, although apparently they're extremely time consuming, which I would not have guessed beforehand. I thought this was going to take an hour, but it did not. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.